Hello, and welcome to Data Planet, the show where we talk with industry leaders about the triumphs and challenges of growing a business and the role data plays along the way. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Madi Castillo, CMO at Tulip Interfaces, a technology company that specializes in frontline operations software for manufacturers. Welcome to the show, Madi.
Thank you for having me, Emma. So fun.
Yeah. All right. So to start with, tell us a little bit about Tulip. So, what problem do you help companies solve, and who is your ideal customer?
Yeah. So it's super fun to work at Tulip as someone who's like coming into the manufacturing and operations world. So maybe it's helpful if I explain it to people who aren't already there.
Yes,
Because I don't
please.
think we think about it that often, like what it means to make things. And so Tulip's customers are a bunch of cool companies that make a variety of things, right? It's like they make vaccines, they make tools, they make houses, they make cars, they make batteries. Like there's like they make organs and like stuff for people who have rare diseases. Like all of these are very different complex environments. And so our customers are often engineers in operations teams or operational leaders, which, look different title wise at kind of the stage and size of company. But fundamentally, they are problem solvers. And unfortunately, for manufacturing worldwide, the way that technology has been approached from like a product development perspective is very like top down and rigid, where manufacturing environments are actually very dynamic. And so it had been kind of the status quo that process engineers, who are usually the people who are helping make sure that the people who are making the things have what they need, and that that's becoming more and more efficient and compliant and great for the end users and people who purchase these products. They were often using things like spreadsheets and papers and stopwatches, doing whatever it takes to solve the problem. And so Tulip is a platform. It's a composable platform that integrates with a lot of the other tools, devices, machines, et cetera, that people need to use in order to make things and make sure that they're made safely. But it's, very low barrier to entry. So it's a no code, low code platform. It's really easy to make. We call them applications or automations, but different types of content to basically guide those processes and make them work in these really complex environments.
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine it's hard to imagine all those different types of companies having enough in common that Tulip can help all of them. So, are there like favorite features that you see people get really excited about?
I think it's less features and more like an awareness of the domain, because you're right. Like these environments are very, very different. Like a clean room in a pharmaceutical environment is going to be very different from like a drone manufacturing facility. But they have a lot in common. They often need to integrate with on-premise systems. So that's like something that isn't based in the cloud, like a database that lives in a facility, or they need to connect to different kind of physical devices or machines. They need to have some type of traceability and connect to other systems. And fundamentally, they also need to live in a physical space. So, when we think about software and technology, you and I, we sit in front of screens, right? Some type of screen. And we're like, a type of a worker that's like solving problems, but used to it kind of being displayed in front of us. Tulip's customers are also solving problems, but they are in a physical space and they also need to interact with data and information in software that lives in physical spaces. So Tulip's kind of design challenge and also main thesis is an understanding of, what they need from like a data and integration perspective, but also where that software needs to kind of live and be optimized.
Awesome. And so, as the CMO there, what are you spending your time doing? What are you responsible for?
So I think like day in the life of CMO at a company Tulip's stage can vary a lot. But if I was going to just summarize it into kind of like two big goals you have for the company, one is helping people understand what Tulip does, especially in like a disruptive space. So I learn a lot about our customers, I learn about the industry, and I help translate the like very advanced technology from all of the engineers and scientists I work with to other engineers who don't necessarily study that type of engineering and technology, so that they understand how it would be valuable valuable to their environment, and help the market understand that value so that we can help drive the change that we care about. And the other side is help grow the business, which I feel like you and I have a lot of experience for, like some long hours and spreadsheets and other kind of platforms to like help make that happen. But it's really how do we take the value and the messaging and the content that Tulip's producing and help distribute it to people who would get value out of it and understand it, to help Tulip grow and also hopefully provide impact to their company.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of growth, very recent update from Tulip is that you raised your Series D funding, $120 million in funding. And part of that process is getting updated valuation for Tulip, now valued over $1 billion. You guys are
Yeah,
unicorns. You are a unicorn. That's
unicorn.
amazing. Yeah. So, in talking about, trying to focus on growing the company in the CMO role, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with that fundraising process?
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting. This is the third series I've been a part of at Tulip. So I joined like just after Series A, when they were just starting to build out the biz teams, which now is like 7.5 years ago, a long time at a startup. But, there's those 2 things that I talked about, the goals of a marketing leader are really important whenever you're having, like, a fundraising conversation as well. Like, you wanna demonstrate the growth and impact that you're having and also kind of the vision of the company and the value it's gonna continue to provide to the market, and some of that is, communication, but a lot of it is also, like, research and quantifying what that looks like and the size of the market, and so that's my team and me, but that's also, our go-to-market team and our finance team and a lot of people who do a lot of kind of both quantitative and qualitative work to help that process along. And the other side is like, while the fundraising is a point in time, the structure of the company and the way we operate in the market is like our life, right? So it's like every day you're, finding ways to grow the company, you're finding ways to provide value to customers, and that culminates in, companies wanting to invest and be part of that journey. But that's really just like an endorsement of the work that we do versus like a specific thing that we're doing to accomplish that as a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, conversations that I've been involved in supporting clients who are working on fundraising, there's a lot of, trying to prove a lot of the research that you talked about, but also showing like we have the engine to acquire these customers.
Yeah.
That's not unrelated from the actual operations of the business. Like what you're proving out for the fundraising side is like, well, that's what we're doing anyways as a business, which is it sounds like that's kind of what you were alluding to is like it's not this separate dog and pony show that has nothing to do with like, look, we serve our customers really well. We're good at getting in touch with those customers and acquiring them and growing in a financially responsible way. That's all part of your role, whether you're fundraising or not.
I love that you bring up financial responsibility because I mean it's 2026 and fundraising and also marketing look radically different than they did during I'd say like the wild spend a lot years of COVID. I'd say that industry wide, and kind of the come down from that, where people kind of tightened up over the last couple of years. And so, responsible growth, especially for a company like Tulip, I think is a really important way of framing it. We're not working towards like some end state to like exit the market. Like and this is why I love working at Tulip. It's a company that's very mission driven that wants to solve a problem and grow and be a good company, a solid company to do that. And so the dynamics of how you make decisions from like marketing investment and spend versus result for the company, they're part of that, structural dynamic that helps other companies and investors decide if, they want to come along for that journey. And again, that's a philosophy and a way of working. That's not a one and done kind of thing.
It's not a sales pitch. That's not, or
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
especially if
yeah,
we're looking at it, they can see the decisions, over
yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I love that, and it's so fun. So I'm part of a Vistage group, and a lot of the folks in my group are in manufacturing, and it's such a fun market to get to peek in on. Like I imagine you enjoy that too. I mean, you're just a intellectually curious person, you're an anthropologist and all that, just like getting to see how how these different how these different groups of people function, and especially in that realm of like creating something and having like something physical that they're shipping off and all that. Do you ever get to tour any of the facilities that you guys
I do
yeah,
visit factories, and it is
that's the
always an
best.
honor to do that, and they're all so different, but to the point, like, there's kind of this through line of, I guess, like, the type of people culturally that are attracted to manufacturing and the way that, facilities are thinking about, making whatever good that they're making, um, and it's both so foreign and also something that I think about every day. So it's nice to get to do that, yeah, as an adult kind of anthropology type thing where I get to meet cool people who are doing something that is very different and learn as much as possible about why and
Yeah.
how everything works.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's the best. And then for like days or weeks or months afterwards, you can't see anything the same. Like you go to a hardware store or whatever and just see like a putty knife and it's like, oh my gosh, just imagine all the things that went into making that, not just bringing that here, but improving that process, making that so that the finances work, all of the negotiation on, steel prices, like just all the things that go into bringing something to the hands of a consumer is so fascinating and so much fun in the manufacturing world.
I think the point you're making there too, like, it is both like the making of a thing is very dynamic, like, even, like, temperature and who's making it and the ergonomics of how it's being made, and, like, the way that the material goods move around, but outside of each individual facility, and this is where I think it's really important that, like, there's, like, I guess, the art, but also maybe the qualitative science of marketing comes in. You need to empathize with folks that are in an environment that is constantly externally dynamic, like the price of the goods that they're buying, the consumer tastes of the product that they're making, and like what's trendy at the time, like labor constraints and movement of people, and like especially with an introduction of new technology, like the way that people are adapting new skills and the hiring markets for that. And many manufacturers are global companies, so there's like a lot of interconnected supply chain considerations for each of these facilities, and so it's just extremely complex, and working on fairly tight margins. And so understanding that that's the environment that the people were selling to and and trying to relate to is living in is, I think, really important. It's a good point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about agency life. So you and I both have a background in the agency world, and for anybody listening who doesn't know, Maddie and I have worked together in the past. She's a former employee of Working Planet, and also has experience working in other agencies beyond Working Planet. And speaking of like anthropology and everyday life, super fun working in an agency because you get to see, this is how this person would approach that problem, or how this company would, or even what that problem looks like or sounds like in different companies, as well as like, that's a really cool thing that they're trying out there. So, what are some of the things that stick out in your memory about companies doing innovative things, especially with data? Like, this is a data centric show. So, yeah, what stands out in your memory about people doing cool stuff with data to help grow businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the most valuable things, especially like when I think about being agency side, working with, I'd say, two profiles of clients like stands out. One, like really early stage clients. Their like marketing impact, especially if they're e-commerce or like heavily digital, such valuable data set for them and understanding their potential customer base, but also helping validate their go-to-market assumptions. So I remember a client that they had like a specific vision of who would want to buy their product and the value that they would get from that. And then when we were working at Working Planet, I was doing a lot more like paid search. So you would kind of do the core of what they talked about, and there's like a long tail of like potential use cases that are kind of around. And you can see both the kind of market dynamics in terms of how people value that and who they're competing with, but also the interest based off of like what people are seeing on their website and how you're talking about the product in the ads versus like their expected reaction, I guess, from their prospect base. And tying that through the funnel, which with early stage clients, sometimes they don't even have CRM, so it's a lot of spreadsheet work and
Yeah.
exports. But I think that the companies that were able to kind of scale and adapt and get value the most from those investments, didn't just see them as, oh, this is like where we're getting a lead against a specific target, but really seeing each lead as representative of a prospective customer or part of the market, and like started to adapt and pull that insight into other parts of their business.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Um, and you talked about being with Tulip from Series A now to where you are and like, being part of that startup uh environment and
Right.
yeah, that excitement and that that grind and rapid transformation that happens with that. What were some of the things that were really critical for you coming into that environment to understand and get in place data wise so that you could enable the kind of growth that you guys have seen over the last 7.5 years?
I love this question. Maybe I like part start to answer it also with the perspective of when I was moving. So I was at agencies for the first like 4 years of my career. You and I working together at Working Planet, so like mostly paid digital, and then kind of a scale up of that to like all types of kind of digital marketing as well as like outbound sales, which is like peak early outbound sales era when I started doing that at like a HubSpot partner. And so coming into Tulip, they were at a stage where they didn't have any of the foundations of that machine, and I knew what it ought to look like. So, like definitions of stages, like how to set up lead captures, what it looked like to have a content strategy at target. Keywords. And so you kind of go through this maturity curve of like getting infrastructure in place to collect data, setting pretty aggressive targets for what you can get out there, and speed and quality are a little more flexy when you're getting started. Like speed matters a lot more, and like there's such a thing as good enough. But within the first year, I'd say acquiring like a marketing automation platform, figuring out how we were going to measure things from a reporting perspective, and having good like web analytics were like immediate setup pieces. Mostly because you only have so much time and resources, even if you are grinding. And so focus and thoughtfulness are really important in making sure you have as much of an outsized impact as possible because you're smaller than everyone else that you're competing with. And like the novelty is only going to get you so far. And the value of the data is making sure that you're spending time where it's going to impact the company the most. And I'm really grateful for the like support and investment I got from Natan even earlier. So Natan's CEO of Tulip, even early days, and like making these investments and giving both like time and also like a lot of focus to building that what we call like marketing and demand machine at Tulip. Because even now, like we have really clean data because we structured it well to start.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. The like, okay, we're moving as fast as we can and we're trying things and nothing's going to be perfect, but also we need to measure that outcome because the next thing we try is going to be based on, well, how did that go? What can we learn from that to continue getting better over time? So I love the idea of even if you're in that phase of like, we're making educated guesses, which maybe you never actually leave every, especially on the marketing front. It's like, we don't there isn't 100% understanding of, what you're getting for your investment, but it's also not like, I don't know, throw money at it. And if we're still in business, we're good. Like there's always this, okay, we're going to try some stuff. How are we going to know if that's working as we go? Because we're going to need to make another decision about this initiative in days, weeks, months from now. So like we need to have that groundwork, that good data in place so that we can understand, to the extent that we can, what's working. And at the very least, can we make our next round of educated bets and guesses that much more informed? So,
And I think that is, like,
um,
the important thing that people miss when it comes to testing that is so valuable, is that you can't test if you don't have at least, like, an idea of what you wanna learn from the test. Like, testing, I
mhm,
guess, to settle an argument is random active marketing, but in some ways, like, there is, like, art as well as science, and so sometimes you do need to kind of go with directionally correct versus you're very confident or statistically significant, especially with small numbers and early days.
yep. Yeah, and one of my favorite, I don't know, mistakes, I guess, that that I can make and that I constantly catch myself doing is trying to get to the perfect result and trying to like, well, I want this model to be accurate all the time, or like I want to be so I want, 3 standard deviations from the mean significance that this is definitely having this impact and all that, as opposed to like if you are providing some value that is better than assuming everything has the same average value, that's such a huge difference. And so like again, this we aren't trying to get to perfection, we're trying to get to business growth. How can we make better and better decisions about what the next step is, what the next investment is for this company? So, um okay, Maddie, I love talking with you about marketing, about business, all that. I appreciate so much you being a guest on Data Planet. If people want to learn more about Maddie and Tulip, information will be in the show notes. Otherwise, Maddie, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Emma, it's been a blast.